welcome to Jimmy's Creative. My previous video, I basically just went into the basics of audio tracks, what they are, what the MIDI tracks are. Yeah, so now I'm going to go into basically just how to make a very basic song using a drum rack, some synths, and maybe some vocals. So if you want to use a drum rack, you come over to the left side and you click instruments. In drums, there's all your like pre-made kits. I like to use my own sounds. Here's some like, you know, bell and bongo and just different things like that. Your wood blocks and different things. So anyway, let's get started. So drum rack, double click. That's going to change the name of the track to drum rack over here. And as I said, here's your beat pad that pops up. That's the best way to describe it. So let's get started, and I'll go hi-hat. I like starting with the high pitch sounds first. I like having it all in order. I'm a bit weird like that. But I'll show you why later. Oh, I like that. So I'll chuck that on. You drag it on to the pad. And now the sound's on the pad. And now I go snare. Okay. Oh, I like that as well. Chuck that on the next one. Now I'll go kick, which is another name for like the bass drum on the drum kit. Oh, that's fat, but I don't think it's right for just a kit. As you can see, there's so many, and you could sit here for hours. Oh, that's pretty cool. But let me just. I don't really like any of these. Ooh, that's nice, but. Okay, I'll go with that one. Okay, kick, there we go. Stop getting picky, let's just get through it. So what you do is, here's where you make the music in the middle, right? So you want to double click at the start. Anywhere here, if you double click, it's going to create a place where you can make your tunes. So double click at the start, because you wouldn't start your song on like the 5th bar. When you double click, so it automatically loops it, which I don't understand why. I've never looped anything anyway. So when you drag it out and try and make more space basically for your drum rack, there's little notches on every bar. That means it's looped. So if you do see that, make sure you unloop it. And then you'll have to drag it out again, because obviously there was just one bar there. So now what you can do is, there's a few keyboard shortcuts which I'll get into. Command Shift and Alt are your main ones. So if you hold Command and use your mouse scroll, you can zoom in. As you can see, the time down the bottom and the bars at the top are getting zoomed in, right? Okay, scroll up, zoom in, scroll down, zoom out. If I hold Shift, let me just zoom in a little bit. If I hold Shift and I scroll up, I go to the right. If I scroll down, I go to the left, okay? I'm sorry that the video is a bit laggy. I'm still trying to figure this out. Doing these tutorials, I'm just kind of learning as I go. So yeah, I'll have clearer videos eventually, but this is where I'm at. So down here, you can do the same, right? Command, scroll up, and I'm gonna zoom in, because I want to see more detail. I want to see more beats in my bars. I don't just want, because if you zoom out, it just has 2 sections, 1 section eventually for each bar. So if you go like this and double click, it's gonna have a hi-hat hit once every bar, right? Command Z is undo. So I don't want that. You got to zoom in. Okay, oh, not too much, but let's just go a hi-hat. Command D is duplicate. Command Z is undo. So you just go duplicate that. See, that sounds nice. Okay, so if you go here, kick, snare, snare, kick, snare. All right, this is gonna take ages, so what I do is I highlight it all, what I wanna duplicate, and then you go Command D for duplicate. And as you can see up the top, that beat is getting duplicated. All right, so we got 2 minutes of beats going on already. So if you press spacebar, right, pretty nice. Kind of boring though, so let's speed it up a bit. Using our BPM at the top. Alright, I like that. I don't really like the kick sound though, because I'm fussy, so I'm just going to find something like that. So if I drag that kick sound onto where this kick sound is, it's not going to delete any of the beats that we've put on. It's just going to change the sound. So, alright, that's way nicer. So now let me just quickly. Okay, so if I go like this. Okay, that's not what I wanted. This one. Yes. Ooh, okay, I like that, like that. Okay, so now what I'll do is dun, 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 dun. Okay, let's try this. So down here where my mouse is, as you can see, it turns into a speaker symbol at the top here on this bar. That's because you can click anywhere. Try and click on the beat and then it'll play from wherever you want. Okay, let's try that again. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's try this now. Command, so I clicked shift and scroll there to scroll back to the left. Now I'll click it again. Okay, that's pretty cool. So we got that going. Nice. So now, with the drum rack, if I click on this, you can see the MP3 file, right? The audio file there, the hi-hat. That's what's getting played. So now I'm going to teach you what a bus is. So basically a bus is just all the audio effects that you're going to use on your sounds or on your tracks. In order. So basically you're just going to move down the bus and the sound is going to keep getting modified by each effect. So I'll explain that. So let's just exit out of these samples on the left here and we go to audio effects. Basically chuck an EQ. I like the EQ 8 because you can do more to the sound. So chuck an EQ on there on the left of this bar here because that's the end of the bus. Alright, it says drop audio effects here, but that is because on the right side of this bar, whether you're on the hi-hat or the snare or the kick, anything that gets dropped in here on this side of this bar is going to affect the entire drum rack track, okay? So you don't want to do that yet. You want to affect all the sounds individually, and then at the end, you're going to chuck some audio effects on the whole track altogether, okay? So let's go. As you can see, if you press this arrow on the EQ, we're going to bring up the sound up here. Okay, now, if you go here, you're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4 are all with a blue square, and 5 onwards have no blue square and they're faded out. That means they don't exist. So if you click 5, the number 5 pops up on the EQ. If you click 6, number 6 pops up, number 7, and so on, so on. We don't need that many. I could even turn off number 4 and number 3. Actually, I'll keep number 2. So I'll move number 2 up here, keep it all leveled. But now with number 1, what you're going to do is you're going to click here, and these shapes are basically saying this one is cutting off the low end, this one is going to cut off the high end. This one is for basically if like you had 3 notches, right? And number 2 is in the middle, 1, 2, 3. Then if you were to go to number 2, you would have this one, because then you can go like this, okay? If I was to click the low cut, then it's going to cut off the lows from the number 2, and you don't want that. So let's just go back to clicking this. Number 1 will do with the low cut, okay? So what you do is, you neaten up, make it all neat, so you're gonna cut off, if you keep going, as you can see, it's only the really high end. So you're gonna, that sounds good to me. What you can do is as well, over here on your beat pad, you can click the M for mute, right? Or you can just click the S for solo. So all I want to hear is the hi-hat. I could have muted the kick and the snare, but I'm just happy to solo it. So that means all you're going to hear is the hi-hat. Okay, so basically as well, 12, 6, 0, minus 6, minus 12. So that's basically just representing the volume, or the decibels, the dB, right? dB always means volume, okay? And left to right, basically 10K is 10,000 hertz, 1,000 hertz, 100 hertz, all the way down, right? So a kick, like a bass, is roughly 200, okay? You're also going to get a lot of hum and fuzz, usually with sub bass and different things if you're making like techno music. So what I'd do is, if I was going to fix that, then you drop down the 2. But see how it's really arced, big arc? That is the Q. So if you come down here to the number 2, change the Q, it's going to make it sharper or wider, okay? But we're not making techno music, so let's just bring this back up. Okay, you don't want it too tinny. You want a bit of like character in there. Like that, I like that. So now if we unmute. Alright, cool. Now what we can do is we can go to the snare and do the same. Drag it on before the bar, so you affect the snare sound. And now let's affect that. So we'll go to number 1, cut off the lows, because we don't need that. And then number 4, we're going to cut off the highs. Nice, okay, so now with the kick, basically all we're doing is just getting rid of any extra frequencies and sounds and things that we don't need. Okay, oop, I accidentally chucked that on the wrong side of the end of the bus, so we've got to chuck that in here. Alright, now it's affecting the kick. Okay, so now what we do is we leave that. Let's get rid of a couple of these notches, we don't really need them. And now with number 2, I'm going to cut off the high end, okay? See? Now it's just the bass. I feel like the kick is a little bit too loud, so I like changing the volume of things using a compressor. That was the wrong side. So basically with the compressor you have 2 vertical bars here. One represents the threshold and the other represents the output of the sound, okay? So the threshold, if there's any sounds quieter than the threshold is going to pull the sounds up. So watch, I'll show you. Ready? Okay, made the bass louder, right? And any frequencies louder than the threshold are going to get knocked off as well. So it makes it louder, but it also just brings up the quieter parts, brings down the louder parts, and just basically makes them all meet in the middle, I guess is the best way to describe it. And now because it's gotten louder, we're going to change the output and make it quieter. So we could, like, if I turn it off, there's no bass. If I bring it up, right? I also like doing that to the snare with the threshold, not really to change the volume, but just to kind of, that sounds much fatter. Okay. Alright, now let's go to the reverb. Let's chuck a reverb on the snare, because why not? I'll just show you a few things. Okay, so the dry wet, if there's ever dry wet like there is on the reverb, on the compressor, a lot of audio effects have a dry wet toggle. So basically that just represents what percentage of the original sound do you want affected, basically. So 55% is the preset, so 55% of the snare is going to get reverb. So let's listen to what it sounds like without it. I'll turn it off using the yellow circle. That's how you turn off audio effects. Okay, that's without the reverb. Okay, now with the reverb. See what I mean? Alright, so if I make it like a massive amount of dry wet, what I'll do is, let's solo the snare pad, okay? So now what you're hearing is the snare. Okay. So if we go dry wet, like, that's too fuzzy, too much dry wet going on. So if you bring it down, I think that sounds sick. Okay, that's pretty good. But also the decay time, these are kind of your main two dials, the decay and the dry wet. I guess the density and stuff you use as well, and the shape. But they're your main two. So the decay means basically if I turn this up to like 20 seconds, it's going to make a reverb for 20 seconds. Hear that? Okay. But you don't want that, so let's bring it all the way down. Alright, I like that. And now up here, basically this is just a high cut, means you're cutting off again like the EQ, the highs of the sound. This is the reverb, whatever you want to cut off. You can do a high cut, or you can like change that around, make more of the so basically you're cutting off the high end of the actual reverb of the sound. You're not affecting the actual sound, okay? I like leaving it where it is because it usually sounds pretty sick. So that is cool. Alright, now let's put a reverb on the hi-hat. This EQ is still up there, so remember with the arrow on the EQ, brings it back down here. And then, so on with the Q and the frequency and the gain and things like that and the shape, when you bring it down, basically when you click on a circle, you can control all that on the left here. It's going to change with each circle, okay? So now we've got an EQ on the hi-hat. So let's see how that sounds. Let's unmute. Alright. I think that's too much, so we'll turn that down actually. Alright, and now like you don't need a reverb on the drum kit, the bass drum. But that's basically how you use the really basic audio effects. If you want, you can chuck like, I'll just show you what like a delay does. Let's chuck it on the snare. So if we go delay, I'll turn off the reverb for now just so it doesn't sound as messy, but right, that's a delay. You can make it more centered limited. You can change it every second. Right, and then so what you're going to do is the dry wet obviously just represents how much of the sound you want to be delayed. The more you do on the dry wet, the original hit is going to be diminished, and then the delayed sounds are going to be amplified. So let's get, see, 100%, you can't hear the original hit, just the delay. Bring it down to 0, original hit. So you find a good, like that, and then the feedback basically is like how much of the delay happens. Right? But we don't need that much. Yeah, you want the delay to match up with the next hit. You don't want it to keep going after that next bass hit. So alright, I like that. That's pretty cool. Let's see what it sounds like with the reverb. Alright, that's pretty cool. So yeah, there's your basic audio effects, things like that. Now let's just chuck the same 3 EQ8 on the end. Remember, after the bar, it's going to affect the entire drum rack. EQ8, and then we can go compressor, because that's gonna, as you know, bring up the quieter parts of the drum kit and bring down the louder parts, and it's gonna sound like way better. And then let's leave the reverb. I think that's fine. So let's go like this. I can do a little bit more bass. Nice. And bring down the highs of that snare, that hi-hat a little bit. Okay, that's pretty cool. Alright, now let's go on to the next thing. Drum racks are pretty boring, to be honest. Let's go on to MIDI, over to this track, and then we go to our instruments on the left, and let's try a simpler. Okay, so simpler and sampler, the same thing basically. Drop a sample on, you can play it on a synthesizer. The sampler just has way more things that you can do. I'm not going to show you that today, but I will show you the simpler. So you double click, remember, unloop the track, drag it out. Okay, and now let's find a weird sample to chuck on. Alright, let's chuck that on. Fuck it. Bongo. I've had a few wines tonight, so I'm just doing my best. Okay, so now remember, if you click the piano keys at the top right and then click the record button, now you can hear yourself. Right? Okay, so now let's go down octaves. Using the Z and X, you can change octaves. So alright, that's the same note, just going down octaves and stuff. That's crisp. Okay, so I'll chuck that on. Now let's go like down here. Now I'll go this here, this here. Here, and don't like it. Okay, you know what, I'm I'm just gonna click a piano. Okay. So now what I'm gonna do is, oh fuck. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. Alright, that's pretty cool. When we wake up and see her, and wake up and see her, and wake up and see her, wake up and see her. Alright, well that's pretty cool. So now what I'm going to do is quickly, I'll just chuck some audio effects on. Let's go EQ, let's chuck a compressor, let's go a reverb. And you know what, with the snare, I'm going to turn off the delay because I don't really like it anymore. Right, so that is the simpler. And now what we can do is, if you go Command Shift T, starts a new MIDI track, Command T starts a new audio track. Okay, so I'll delete that, I don't need that either. So now we'll go MIDI track, instruments, let's make a wavetable, let's make a cool synth. So what we do is unloop, fucking loop, and then what I'll do is I'll just duplicate that so we have more space. Shift click highlights what you clicked to where you clicked the second time. Command J is another keyboard shortcut. Basically just connects all of the things up together, so you see it all down here. Okay, so now I'll go wavetable. Put the record on this one. Okay, so let's just go bum, bum, bum. Okay, so C2, C3, C3, G3. Oh, Jesus. Alright, so I'm just going to move this up here. Okay. Alright, let's make it quieter. Let's solo this track. Now what you can do is duplicate it. Do is as well hold Alt on anything, a track, an audio effect, anything. If you hold Alt and you click, it's going to come up with that little plus symbol with the page, and then you can copy something. let's see what that sounds like. Wait, I gotta turn this down. Then if I wanted to, you could just go and do a lot of other stuff, but I'm just going to leave it as that. Okay, and now let's go Command T for new audio track, and let's record some vocals. Alright, so go record on this, unrecord that, make sure the microphone is, or if you want a guitar, make sure the right input is selected, and then you can just go record. What I should do is plug in my headphones. You won't hear the song for a little bit, just because
When I wake up and I see her, and I wake up and I see her. When I wake up and I see her, and I wake up and I see her, and I wake up, see her, wake up and I see her.
Alright, that's sweet, fuck it. So if I was to go click here and then click Command E, it turns this into two different tracks. Okay, then remember, Shift click, selects it all, Command J, reconsolidates it. Okay, so
When I wake up and I see her, and I wake up and I see her. When I wake up and I see her, and I wake up and I see her, wake up and I see her.
okay, let's see how that sounds.
When I wake up and I see her, and I wake up and I see her. When I wake up and I see her, and I wake up and I see her, and I wake up and I see her, wake up and I see her.
Alright, well that's pretty cool. So that's basically audio and MIDI. I could show you something else on the compressor quickly. So if I go solo to this track, solo to the drum rack, basically all you're going to hear is those two. So if I double click on compressor, press the down arrow like with the EQ, how it brings up the EQ up the top. If you press the down arrow on a compressor, it's going to open the sidechain. So a sidechain is basically you're assigning this track's sound, so the wavetable sound, to another track. Okay, every time the other track sounds decibels or volume goes up, the sound and volume of this track is going to drop. Okay, so what you do is you go drum rack. Okay, but because there's three different sounds going on in that drum rack, what I like to do is, I just get a one hit like that, drag it down here, it'll create an audio track for you for the hit, and now, dun, 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 dun. Okay, so we go like this, Command Shift, duplicate it all the way out, and now you can turn the volume all the way off for this track. The decibels are still going to be playing, so then you go to your wavetable, go to the sidechain, pick that track. So now every time it hits, the level of the wavetable is going to drop. Let me show you. Ready? What you can do is as well, I'll just show you something cool. So I'm going to solo the kick on the drum pad. Alright, so that's a side chain. Now so that's basically that. That's the basic song with a wavetable, a simpler, and a drum rack. It's very shit, but that's just something rough. What I can do is too, with the wavetable, let's change the sound a bit. So alright, so now I'll go on to the wavetable. I'll probably make this a new video because there's a fair bit to do, but let's see how we go. Okay, so over on the left is the sine wave. Basically, you want a clear sound down the bottom, and then at the top is like that. Alright, so let's just solo that. Right, so the shape as well that the sound's changing on, you can change it. So this is basic shapes. If you go to like a sub, right? Or you can go to like right, okay, let's just go back to basic shapes. And now over here is basically another high cut, which means you're cutting out whatever is above this amount of hertz. So if it's higher pitch than 1150 hertz, it's going to get cut. Right? Okay. And then over here, it says ADSR. That's attack, decay, sustain, and release. So the attack means how many milliseconds or seconds does it take for the actual note to be hit. So let's just play it. That's zero attack. It's very punchy. You like your snares, your hi-hats, all your drum kit sounds to have basically zero attack, okay? That makes them sound fatter. So if you got this, see? Alright, decay as well is basically how do I explain this? So, hitting a note on a piano is louder decibels than the sound when you've held your finger on the key, right? So it goes, and then it's louder, and then basically the sound that is still resonating when you hold your finger on it is softer. Okay, so the decay is basically how loud do you want it after the hit happens. So right. Okay, so how long do you want it to decay for? Right, I like a little bit. And now the sustain and release is basically if you were to hit it once, so let's just go from here. Release is on 16 seconds, so that last hit will resonate and fade out over 16 seconds, right? So if I bring it down, it's going to turn off because it's already been way past that. Okay, so that is the wavetable. That is just the basics of it. The matrix, so basically the amplitude of the pitch, you can change the pitch. Creates like, if you're using like a sub bass, you can make like a wobbly sound. So I'll show you that. Right. Okay. So now if we go to envelope, now I'll show you the oscillator, right? Alright, now that is automatically changing that. Okay, so basically that's how you use the matrix. You can change the pitch, you can start the pitch from wherever you want, you can start the oscillator from wherever you want. So if you go like this, okay, it's gonna start down the bottom, minus 47, and then it's gonna be amplified. Okay. I like that. That sounds pretty cool. Okay, volume. Yeah, that's pretty good for now. Now the MIDI. So basically you can just fuck around with that and find something that works for you. I like that. Alright, if you want to turn on the sub bass, just go sub bass, turn on a little bit of tone. Right, okay, so that's the wavetable. Attack, decay, sustain, release, all the same stuff for this simpler as well. So if I was to solo this, okay, that's pretty cool. Too much sub bass. Alright, so that's the simpler, the wavetable, the drum rack, audio effects, recording. Nice. So I think that's good for now.